My name is Caleb Whitaker. I'm 36 years old and I live in Portland, Oregon. I work as a systems engineer for a mid-sized tech firm downtown. People who know me would probably describe me as methodical, reserved, maybe a bit too careful. I like routines. I like knowing what to expect. That's probably why what happened 2 years ago hit me so hard. July 2023. I'd been married to Elena Harwood for 6 years. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue in Laurelhurst Park back in 2017. She was 28 when we met, worked in marketing for a wellness startup. Smart, charming, the kind of person who could walk into a room and make everyone feel like they mattered. I thought we had something solid. Not perfect, but real. Then one Thursday evening I came home from work to an empty house. Not just quiet. Empty. Her closet was cleared out. Half the bathroom counter was bare. There was no note, no text, nothing. I called her 6 times that night. No answer. I called her mother. She didn't know anything either. Or at least, that's what she said. 3 days later, Elena finally picked up. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. "I'm not happy anymore, Caleb," she said. "I need space. I need to figure things out." I asked where she was. She hung up. The following week, I found out through a co-worker who has family in Eastern Washington. Elena had moved to Spokane, and she wasn't alone. She was living with my younger brother, Jasper. Jasper Whitaker, 31 years old. The guy who couldn't hold a job for more than 18 months, who borrowed money from our parents every other year, who always had some excuse for why things didn't work out. And now he had my wife. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists like this video, and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. I didn't confront them. I didn't drive up to Spokane and bang on their door. I just sat in my living room that night, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of it. My brother, my wife. How long had this been going on? How many times had I invited him over for dinner, not knowing? 3 months later, in October 2023, I heard from an aunt that Elena was pregnant. I called her again. This time, she answered on the first ring. "It's Jasper's," she said flatly. "We're together now. Move on, Caleb." Then she blocked my number. I tried to piece it together. The timeline didn't make sense. We'd been intimate as recently as June 2023, but she was so sure, so definitive. And Jasper never reached out to me. Not once. Not to apologize, not to explain. Nothing. I could have fought it then. I could have demanded a paternity test, hired a lawyer, made a scene. But I didn't. I just watched from a distance as their lives unfolded. I told myself it was better to let it go, to move forward, to rebuild. But I didn't stop paying attention. By early 2024, I started hearing things through the family grapevine. Jasper had been fired from his job at a distribution center. Something about inappropriate conduct with a co-worker. He and Elena were struggling financially. They'd moved 3 times in 6 months, bouncing between cheap apartments and eventually landing at her parents' place in Spokane Valley. Then the domestic disturbance calls started. I didn't dig for this information. It just came to me. A cousin who works dispatch in Spokane County mentioned it in passing during a family gathering. Multiple calls to the same address. Noise complaints. Arguments loud enough for neighbors to get involved. Nothing was ever charged, but the pattern was there. I kept my distance. I focused on work. I started seeing someone new. Harper Ellington, 35, a school social worker I met through a community volunteer program in the Alberta Arts District. She was grounded, thoughtful, patient. She knew about Elena and Jasper. She never pushed me to talk about it unless I wanted to. Then in January 2025, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. It was Jasper. His voice was shaking. He sounded like he'd been crying. "Caleb, I need to talk to you. I need to tell you something." I didn't say anything. I just waited. "The kid," he said. "Micah. He's not mine. He's yours." I felt my chest tighten. "What are you talking about?" Elena lied, he said. She lied about everything, the dates, the timeline, all of it. I confronted her last week and she finally admitted it. She knew from the beginning. She just didn't want you involved. I sat down. My hands were cold. Why are you telling me this now? Because I can't do this anymore, he said. I'm done. I'm leaving her. And you deserve to know the truth. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone. Then I called the family law attorney Harper had recommended months earlier, just in case. Her name was Victoria Brennan. She practiced out of a small office near Pioneer Courthouse Square. I explained everything. She listened without interrupting. We can file for a paternity test, she said. Given your brother's statement and the timeline, a judge will likely grant it. After that, we'll see what the results say. I filed the petition with Multnomah County Circuit Court the following week. The paperwork was straightforward, but the waiting was excruciating. Every day felt like a month. Victoria told me to stay patient, to let the process work. The law moves slowly, she said, but it moves. The court scheduled a hearing for early February 2025. Elena was served with the petition at her parents' address in Spokane Valley. She didn't respond. She didn't show up to the hearing either. The judge reviewed Jasper's written statement, which Victoria had obtained and notarized. He also reviewed the timeline I provided, backed up by bank statements, text message logs, and travel records showing Elena and I were still living together through June 2023. Judge Patricia Moreland looked at the documents, then looked at me. Mr. Whitaker, given the circumstances and the credible allegation of biological connection, I'm granting your request for DNA testing. The child's welfare is paramount here, and establishing paternity serves his best interest. The court ordered a cheek swab collection for Micah. It was scheduled for mid-February at a certified lab in Spokane. Elena tried to block it at the last minute through a public defender, but the motion was denied. She had no legal grounds. The test was conducted under supervised conditions. 2 weeks later, I got the call from Victoria. Caleb, the results are in. You're the biological father. 99.97% probability. I had to sit down. I'd suspected it, hoped for it even, but hearing it confirmed was different. Micah was mine, my son, a child I'd never met, who was almost 9 months old, who had been kept from me deliberately. What happens now? I asked. Now we file for custody, Victoria said. And I'm going to recommend we involve Child Protective Services. Based on what I've been hearing through the family court network, there may be grounds for a welfare check. She was right to be concerned. Within days, a caseworker from Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families made a visit to the residence where Elena and Micah were staying. The report came back a week later. It wasn't good. The home was described as unstable. Micah, who was 9 months old at the time, was underweight. His immunizations were incomplete. There was no consistent pediatric care. The caseworker noted inadequate food supplies in the residence and concerns about caregiver capacity. Elena told the worker she was doing her best and that Jasper had recently left. She was staying with her parents, but they were elderly and not physically able to provide primary child care. The report also mentioned that there had been multiple noise complaints at the residence over the past 6 months, and that neighbors had expressed concerns about shouting and loud arguments, though no one had witnessed direct harm to the child. Victoria filed an emergency motion for temporary custody. We have biological paternity, a concerning welfare report, and an unstable living environment, she explained. This is textbook grounds for temporary placement with you while we work out a permanent arrangement. The hearing was set for early March 2025. This time, Elena showed up. She looked exhausted. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She didn't have an attorney, just the same public defender who'd tried to block the DNA test. He looked overworked and underprepared. Judge Moreland reviewed the CPS report. She asked Elena directly about Micah's living situation, his medical care, his daily routine. Elena stumbled through her answers. She admitted she'd been struggling financially. She said she was trying to find work but hadn't had any luck. She said her parents were helping, but they couldn't do everything. Ms. Harwood, the judge said, her voice firm but not unkind. I'm concerned about your son's immediate welfare. Based on the evidence before me, I'm granting temporary custody to Mr. Whitaker. You will have supervised visitation rights pending further evaluation. Do you understand? Elena nodded. She didn't look at me, not once during the entire hearing. The transition happened fast. Too fast, maybe. By mid-March 2025, Micah was living with me in Portland. He was 11 months old. He couldn't walk yet, just crawled everywhere. He didn't know me. When the social worker brought him to my apartment that first day, he cried for 20 minutes straight. I didn't know what to do. I'd never been around babies much. I held him, tried to comfort him, but he just kept crying. Then Harper showed up. She'd taken the afternoon off work. She sat down on the floor next to us and started singing softly. Some kid's song I didn't recognize. Micah stopped crying. He looked at her. She smiled at him. He reached for her hand. That was the beginning. Harper didn't try to be his mother. She just showed up. Every day. She'd come over after work and help with dinner, with bath time, with the bedtime routine we were trying to establish. She bought board books and stacking toys. She researched pediatricians and got Micah caught up on his shots. She was there when he took his first steps in April 2025, right there in my living room. She cheered like he'd just won the Olympics. Elena was supposed to have supervised visits every other Saturday at a community center in Vancouver, Washington, halfway between Portland and Spokane. She showed up to the first one. Micah didn't recognize her. He clung to me the entire hour. She tried to play with him, offered him a stuffed animal she'd brought, but he wasn't interested. He kept looking back at the door like he wanted to leave. She didn't show up to the second visit, or the third, or any of the ones after that. By summer, Victoria filed for permanent custody. The court scheduled a final hearing for August 2025. Elena didn't attend. Her public defender submitted a brief statement saying she wasn't in a position to provide adequate care at this time and wouldn't contest the custody arrangement. On August 15th, Judge Moreland made it official, full legal and physical custody to me. Elena retained visitation rights, but they remained supervised and contingent on her demonstrating stability. The judge also ordered a child support arrangement, though Victoria warned me not to expect much given Elena's financial situation. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted it to be over. And it was. Micah started thriving. He gained weight. He hit his developmental milestones. He learned to say dada in June 2025, and by September he was stringing together two-word phrases. More juice. Read book. Harper here? That last one got me every time. He'd hear the door and his face would light up. Harper here, and she always was. By late September 2025, Micah was 18 months old. We'd settled into a life that felt normal, even good. I'd rearranged my work schedule to be home more. Harper had essentially moved in, though we hadn't made it official. She had her own place a few blocks away, but most nights she was with us. Micah had his own room, painted light blue with clouds on the ceiling. He had routines. He knew what to expect. He felt safe. And then one Saturday afternoon, we saw her. We were at the Alberta Community Center a few blocks from my apartment. They have a Saturday morning program for toddlers, music and movement, that kind of thing. Harper had found it online and thought Micah would enjoy it. She was right. He loved it. He'd bounce around to the songs, clap his hands, try to mimic the instructor's movements. It was one of the highlights of our week. That particular Saturday, the weather was nice, so after the class ended, we stayed outside in the small play area adjacent to the building. There were slides, a sandbox, some riding toys. Micah was obsessed with a red plastic tricycle, even though his legs were still too short to reach the pedals properly. He'd just push himself around with his feet, grinning the whole time. Harper and I were sitting on a bench nearby watching him. She'd brought coffee from the cafe across the street. We were talking about whether to sign him up for swimming lessons when they started up again. Normal stuff, parent stuff. Then I saw her. Elena was standing near the entrance to the community center, maybe 30 feet away. She was alone. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was shorter. She was wearing jeans and a gray hoodie, hands shoved in the pockets. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Micah. My first instinct was to grab him and leave, but I didn't move. I just watched her watching him. Harper noticed my expression and followed my gaze. "Is that her?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "What do you want to do?" "Nothing," I said. "Let's just see what happens." Elena took a few steps closer, but she stayed outside the play area fence. She didn't call out to him. She just stood there, watching. Micah didn't notice her at first. He was too focused on his tricycle. But then he looked up, scanning the area like kids do, checking to make sure we were still there. His eyes passed over Elena. He paused. For a second I thought he might recognize her, but instead his face changed. Not recognition, confusion. Maybe something closer to wariness. He stopped pushing the tricycle. He stood up and walked toward us. Not quickly, not running, just a steady, deliberate walk. When he reached the bench, he moved behind my legs and peeked out at Elena. Then he looked up at Harper. "Harper," he said. Just her name. But the way he said it, it was a question and a statement at the same time. Like he was checking, like he wanted to make sure she was still there. Harper reached down and picked him up. "I'm right here, buddy," she said softly. Micah wrapped his arms around her neck and buried his face in her shoulder. Elena saw it, all of it. The way he moved toward Harper without hesitation. The way he reached for her. The way he felt safe with her. I stood up. I thought maybe I should say something. I didn't know what, but it felt like the moment required it. Before I could speak, Elena turned and walked away. She didn't look back. She just left. Harper adjusted Micah on her hip. "Are you okay?" she asked me. "Yeah," I said. "I think so." We stayed at the community center for another 20 minutes. Micah went back to playing, though he stayed closer to us than before. He kept checking, making sure we were still there. When it was time to leave, Harper carried him to the car. He fell asleep on the drive home, his head resting against the side of his car seat, his little hand still clutching the stuffed dinosaur Harper had given him a few weeks earlier. That night, after Micah was asleep, Harper and I sat in the living room. We didn't talk about Elena right away. We just sat there, the television on low, neither of us really watching it. Finally, Harper said, "Do you think she'll try to contact you?" "I don't know," I said. "Maybe, probably not." "How do you feel about seeing her?" I thought about it. "I don't feel angry," I said. "I thought I would. But I just feel nothing. She's a stranger now. She made her choices, and now she has to live with them." Harper nodded. "Micah's lucky to have you." "We're lucky to have you," I corrected. She smiled but didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Elena never reached out. No calls, no texts, no letters. I heard through the family grapevine that she'd moved back in with her parents permanently. Jasper had apparently left Washington entirely, moved down to California to work for some logistics company. Nobody in the family talked to him anymore. My parents had essentially disowned him after everything came out. There were no more holiday invitations, no more birthday cards. He was just gone. As for Elena, I didn't waste time thinking about her. I had a son to raise. I had a life to build. And every day, that life got a little bit better, a little bit more stable. Micah continued to grow. Harper officially moved in that fall. We didn't make a big announcement or have a conversation about it. Her lease was up, and it just made sense. Her things gradually migrated from her apartment to ours, until one day we realized she'd been living with us full-time for a month. Micah started calling her Mama Harper around that time. We didn't encourage it or discourage it. It just happened naturally. One morning at breakfast, he looked up from his bowl of oatmeal and said, "Mama Harper, more banana, please?" Harper's eyes got a little watery, but she just smiled and cut him another slice. I thought about that moment at the community center a lot. The way Micah had looked at Elena, confused and uncertain, and then turned to Harper for safety. It wasn't dramatic. There was no confrontation, no shouting, no courtroom showdown. It was just a quiet, definitive moment. A child choosing who he trusted, who he loved. Elena had wanted to keep him from me. She'd lied about his paternity, kept him in an unstable environment, cut off all contact. She'd tried to erase me from his life entirely, and in the end, she'd erased herself instead. I didn't gloat. I didn't send her messages or post anything on social media. I didn't need to. The truth was enough. Micah was happy, healthy, and loved. He had a stable home, consistent routines, and 2 people who showed up for him every single day. That was the revenge. Not destruction or public humiliation. Just living well. Just being present. Just proving that I could be the parent she never was. Sometimes, late at night after Micah was asleep, I'd think about how different things could have been. If Elena had been honest from the start. If she'd let me be involved. If she'd put Micah first instead of her own impulsiveness. But those thoughts never lasted long, because the truth was, I had everything I needed right here, and she had nothing but regret. The best part? She knew it. She'd seen it with her own eyes. Her son, the child she'd tried to keep from me, safe and happy in someone else's arms. Not a stranger's. Harper's. The woman who'd shown up, who'd stayed, who'd loved him without conditions or demands. Elena had made her choice. And now she lives with it every single day, knowing what she's lost. Knowing she lost it through her own actions. That's justice. Quiet, undeniable, and permanent. I never expected closure. That's not really how life works. There's no final scene where everyone gets what they deserve and the credits roll. But sometimes, if you're patient enough, you get something close to it. In the weeks after that encounter at the community center, I started to realize something. I'd spent so much time in 2023 and early 2024 trying to understand why Elena had done what she did, why she'd chosen Jasper, why she'd lied about Micah, why she'd cut me out so completely. I'd turned it over in my mind 1,000 times, looking for answers that made sense. But the truth is, there was no grand explanation, no master plan. She'd been impulsive and selfish. She'd wanted something different, something exciting, and she'd convinced herself that leaving was the answer. And when she got pregnant, she'd panicked and made up a story that let her avoid responsibility. That was it. No complex psychology, just poor judgment and worse follow-through. Understanding that freed me. I stopped looking for meaning in her actions. I stopped wondering what I could have done differently. I'd been a good husband. I'd shown up. I'd been faithful. Her choices weren't about me. They were about her, and now she has to live with them. My life has completely transformed. I got a promotion at work recently, which came with better hours and the option to work remotely 2 days a week. That means more time with Micah, more mornings where I can make him breakfast, more afternoons where I can pick him up from his part-time daycare program and take him to the park. Harper has become an integral part of not just Micah's life, but mine. We've talked about getting engaged, maybe planning something down the line. Nothing rushed. We have time. For the first time in years, I feel like the future is something to look forward to, instead of something to survive. Micah thrives in ways I hadn't anticipated. He's curious, energetic, and surprisingly empathetic for a toddler. If Harper or I seem tired or stressed, he'll bring us one of his stuffed animals and pat our hand. "It's okay, Dada," he'll say. Or, "Mama Harper needs a hug." And we'll scoop him up and hold him, this little person who'd been through so much instability in his first year, and somehow came out the other side whole. Victoria told me recently that Elena's attorney reached out with preliminary paperwork about potentially terminating her parental rights. It's not finalized yet, and there's a process to follow, but it looks like she may voluntarily give up all legal rights to Micah. No custody, no visitation, no decision-making authority. Victoria explained it would end her child support obligation and free her from any future legal proceedings. But I think the real reason is simpler. She knows she can't be what he needs, and at least she's honest enough to admit it. When the time comes, Harper and I will tell Micah a simplified version. Not right away, but eventually when he's old enough to understand. We'll tell him that he had a birth mother who wasn't able to take care of him, and that she made the decision to let him be raised by people who could. We'll tell him that he's loved, that he's wanted, and that his family is right here. Maybe one day he'll have more complicated feelings about it. Maybe he'll want to know more about Elena, or even try to find her. But that will be his choice when he's ready. For now, he's just a kid who likes dinosaurs and peanut butter sandwiches and bedtime stories. As for Jasper, I heard he's been seeing someone in Sacramento. I don't know if it'll last. I don't really care. The rift in our family is permanent. Some things can't be fixed, and honestly, I don't want to fix it. He made his choices. I made mine. We're living in different worlds now. Looking back, I realized that the moment I won wasn't in a courtroom. It wasn't when the DNA test came back, or when the judge granted me custody, or even when Elena walked away at the community center. The moment I won was quieter than that. It was an evening in early September, right before we saw Elena. Micah had just turned 18 months old. We were sitting on the floor of the living room, building a tower out of blocks. Harper was in the kitchen making dinner. The windows were open and I could hear the sounds of the neighborhood, kids playing, someone mowing their lawn. Micah stacked one more block on the tower, then looked up at me and grinned. "Big tower, Dada," he said. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "That's a really big tower." He knocked it over, laughed, and started building again. And in that moment, I realized I was happy. Not just content, not just okay, actually happy. The kind of deep, settled happiness that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. That was the win. Not over Elena, not over Jasper, over the chaos and betrayal and pain of the past 2 years. I'd come out the other side with my son, with someone I love, with a life that feels real and good. That's what revenge looks like when it's done right. You don't destroy the people who hurt you. You just build something better without them. Elena lost more than custody. She lost the chance to know her son, to watch him grow, to be part of his life. She'll see pictures someday, maybe through mutual family connections, and she'll wonder what he's like, what his voice sounds like, whether he ever thinks about her. And she'll have to live with the fact that she gave all of that up, not because someone took it from her, because she walked away. I didn't need her to apologize. I didn't need her to regret it publicly or admit she was wrong. I just needed her to know, somewhere deep down, that she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. And based on the look on her face that day at the community center, I'm pretty sure she does. Micah is 18 months old now. Life is good. Not perfect, but good. Harper and I laugh about a lot of things these days. We're building something solid, something real. And that's more than enough. If you enjoyed this story, like this video, and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications for new stories like this one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.